Alright, so it's finally time. Royal Ascot is here. Day one is tonight. Obviously, three Group 1s, the Queen Anne Stakes, the King Charles, and the St James's Palace. In my opinion, one of the best days of racing in the entire world, because you get three just incredibly competitive Group 1s, especially the St James's Palace, where you see, normally three Guineas winners. I know this year it's a bit different with Reef not coming here, but it's still an incredible race between Boeco and Gastard. And then obviously the Queen Anne, you've got notable speech who's, been around for a while now, and, more Thunder, Opera Bello, who might be, the next big thing over a mile in Europe. So, it's just such good racing this week, and I'm actually buzzing to preview some of these races. We'll start off with the Queen Anne Stakes, Group 1 over a mile, one of the premier mile races in Europe in the calendar. And also it's meant to be good to firm this week at Ascot. We might see similar conditions to last year where, it was more on the firm side. It was actually quite hard on the last day. So, we're meant to see dry weather, European summer, English summer. It should be good vibes. Queen Anne Stakes. Notable speeches as a favourite, and rightfully so. He started off his prep this year in the Maker's Mark Mile, a Group 1 in America, where William Buick didn't give him the best of rides, and he came steaming home. He should have won, but it was average ride by Buick. And then last start he won the Lock-in Stakes and showed what he's really known for is his electric turn of foot, and he won very well. And going into that race, people were saying that he's the only proven Group 1 horse there, and that really showed. I thought, he won very well. And he's the rightful favourite. More Thunder now. William Haggis, Tom Marquand. I've always had a massive rap for this horse. He ran an enormous race in the Foray last year, over 7 furlongs in Paris, where he was drawn like barrier 14 and got interfered with at the start, and he came flying home. Just never had a chance in that race, and he ran so well. I've always thought he's a Group 1 horse since the middle of last year. I think he might have won at Ascot in one of those handicaps or something, or he came second, something like that, where he should have won. But I think he's a Group 1 horse, and I think this, going up to a mile, he's really going to suit him. He obviously ran over a mile last start, but he was more of a 7 furlong sort of horse last year. And so, I think running second in a Lock-in Stakes first up, he's only going to improve, and hopefully if he's a bit closer to notable speech here, he might win More Thunder, I think. Opera Bello, won his first Group 1 at Meydan in the Jebel Hatta over 1,800 metres. And then he went to Sandown for that mile race and won very emphatically, won very well off the front. And it looks like they've kind of figured him out in terms of getting him to relax a bit in the races. Obviously gets Billy Loughnane here, so, that's a positive. But he could be anything, this horse. Obviously Buick goes on the proven notable speech at Group 1 level in Europe, but Opera Bello could really surprise here, I think, and could win this for Godolphin. We literally don't know how good he is. That's what you're punting on with Opera Bello here. You got Docklands, who ran an absolute belter last start in Hong Kong. He's going pretty well, isn't he? Really, he's raced everywhere. He ran in a Cox Plate one year, I believe. He's run in Japan. He's run in Hong Kong. He's run everywhere, and he won this race last year too, so he's always in with a chance. And Mark Zara as well, flies in to ride this horse, and he won it last year without a whip for the last furlong, I believe. So, he could run. This horse always comes alive at Ascot, so I'd imagine he'll be in the finish somewhere. Zeus Olympios, for me, I don't think he really did enough in that Lock-in. I mean, of course he can improve, but I'm not too sure. I think More Thunder and Notable Speech are just going to always finish in front of him, to be honest. Damasus, I like the horse, but I think he's more of a mile and a quarter sort of horse. I'm not really sure why they're going down this route of going over a mile. He won that 1,800 metre race at the start of his prep, then, wasn't good enough in the Lock-in. I think he's more of a mile and a quarter horse. Cicero's Gift obviously won the QE2 at Ascot last year, but hasn't really, regained that sort of form to start off this year. First Conquest, third stringer for Godolphin, probably not really any chance. And Ted Bob Tony won't be good enough. So, in this race, I think it's between the top two, Notable Speech and More Thunder. I'll probably have a bet on both of them, but it'll be one of those races where I don't win a great deal. It'll just be a matter of winning on the race, and I think I'm going to do that by having bets on Notable Speech and More Thunder. I actually think More Thunder might get him, I think. Obviously, notable speed, just proven at Group 1 level, won a 2,000 guineas. I believe he won a Sussex Stakes and then won the Lockinge. He's one of these big races, but More Thunder, I think he's really good. I think this is his time. And I think it might be a big Royal Ascot Group 1 for William Haggis and Tom Marquand in the Queen Anne Stakes. All right, we'll move to the next race now. I think it's a 2-year-old race. The Coventry Stakes, 6 furlongs. To be honest, these races are real sort of lotteries because you obviously can't gauge the improvement of all these horses. There's just so much going on. But I've done my best here to find 2 that I think are good chances of winning. And I'm also factoring in past stable and jockey performances in this race, or in these 2-year-old races at Ascot. So I'll talk about the ones that I like. Great Barrier Reef. Now, obviously, Ryan Moore's chosen Confucius, which is kind of understandable. She won very well last start. Sorry, I believe. He won very well last start, although, what was he really racing against? It was just like a novice race, I believe. Whereas Great Barrier Reef won a Group 3 last start very well, showed a very good turn of foot. And I feel like 6-1, or 11-2 is a decent price because, it's not going to be a pacemaker, this horse. It's a sprint, so it's just going to be all out. The best horse will win. And I think Great Barrier Reef's a really good option in this. James McDonald has his first Ascot ride on Ruler's Pride, who, is supposedly the Watnan second stringer. So, we might see J-Mac turn the tables on James Doyle in this race. You never know, it might be in another race. But I've had a look at a few of these, and the other one I like is Adaay of Scarlett at a massive price. Billy Lognan, we've seen him win these sorts of races. He won on Russia Bar 2 years ago at 80-1 or something. So he can really get the best out of these really green sort of flighty 2-year-olds, I think, Billy Lognan. Which is no surprise because he's an absolutely excellent jockey for his age and his experience. But I think Adaay of Scarlett's way too big after coming second in a listed race last start at Sandown. Albeit it was over 5 furlongs, so going up to 6 here might be a bit of a question. But I don't know. I think she's had the race experience. I think 50-1. I'm on at 33, so that kind of sucks for me. But I think having the race experience and having a really good jockey on these 2-year-olds is really important. I think that's way too big of a price for Adaay of Scarlett. And then there's so much going on here. You've got horses that have had one start, ran 5th, and owners want to run her at Royal Ascot, so they just send it there with no chance. So my 2 picks for the Coventry Stakes are Adaay of Scarlett and Great Barrier Reef. I think both of them should run big races. Obviously, there's a strong chance that Confucius just goes and wins. I remember last year, Ballador were just winning everything. I think they won with Castard, True Love. I think there might have been another one there somewhere. But I think Great Barrier Reef and Adaay of Scarlett are good ones to be on in the Coventry Stakes. All right, we'll go to the next one. Back to the Group 1s. 5 furlongs, I believe. Yep, King Charles Stakes, Group 1. Such a good race. We've seen absolute champions win this in the past. I believe Nature Strip won this, an Australian trained horse, a few years ago. And it's just, it's a rapid race. It goes in the blink of an eye. Don't blink for the King Charles Stakes, 5 furlongs. Overpass is the favourite. I get it. He's Australian. As I've said in many of my past videos, Australian horses clean up in Group 1s in sprints in Europe. And I think there's every chance he's just too good. The way he races as well, he goes forward. He's run over 6 furlongs, 7 furlongs, but this is his first run at 5 furlongs in a really long time. But I think they've done that on purpose because, A, him going forward and never seeing another horse again is a real possibility because I think he does have the class edge on a lot of these. And B, I don't think they want to run this horse against Jolly Star in the 6 furlong contest on Saturday. So they're running him here over 5. But there's a few issues I have with him. Firstly, he's a 7-year-old, so he's arguably at the twilight of his career. And also 5 furlongs. I just don't love that for him. So I'm looking away from him in this race. You got Knight Raider, Watnan, James Doyle, Carl Burke trains him. He started off his career as a 2,000 guineas prospect. They ran him over a mile, and that obviously wasn't his trip. And he's really found his lane over 5 furlongs. I think, he won the Group 2. I think it was the Temple Stakes that he won last start, So yeah, I think he's a really interesting horse, Night Raider. You got Ray Evco, comes across from France. She's had a bit of a international campaign, ran at Maidan, and she's pretty good. Although I think I just can't see a French sprinter not named Lazat winning at Ascot over a sprinting distance, to be honest. So I think Ray Evco's pretty handy, but I think in a really hot Group 1 like this, I just can't have Ray Evco. And also that, they're switching and swapping distances with her a bit as well. They were trying to do 6 furlongs in the Alquoz sprint at Maidan, and now they're back to 5. Like, come on, guys, make your mind up, I think. American Affair won the race last year. But, he's a 6-year-old. He's getting on a little bit. Although he's a really bulletproof 5 furlong horse. That's what I will say. Ran second last start. I'm pretty sure that was over 5 furlongs. I think he's, and he had all that time off. Just the fact that he's a 6-year-old and he's had, injuries and stuff, I'm looking away from American Affair, although I do accept the fact that there's every chance he could win this again. Now we'll continue to Asphora. Now, won the race 2 years ago, had an epic campaign last year, winning the Adaay in Paris and the Nunthorpe at York. But I think, 2026, she's a 7-year-old. She had a winter in England. Like, she didn't enjoy the summer in Australia. She had this shit, miserable winter. Obviously, she would have been looked after like a queen, but she hasn't really come back this year as a 7-year-old. Hasn't really shown much. On that racing preview with William Haggis, George Bowyer, Shane Murphy, that you would have seen it probably. It was really interesting, and Shane was, he said she's going to have to find quite a bit essentially to win this race, and I tend to agree. Mission Central's interesting, but as a 3-year-old, it's very hard for 3-year-olds to win this race. Although I kind of get it, he's a gelding, and I think 5 furlongs is really his distance. He has a bit of a weird running style. So I think, I kind of get it, but he's a 3-year-old. It's very difficult for them to win this race against really big, established, fast horses. I think Big Mojo's probably more of a 6 furlong horse. Rumstar's getting on a bit, and he's not really a Group 1 horse. Time for Sandals hasn't really come back. Rosie Affair's pretty interesting, although I just have a bit of an issue with a Fillies and Mares listed race at Haydock being her strong bit of form. I know she came through the handicaps last year, but I think this is too big of a step up. Although, if you want to do a long range sort of roughy play, she's probably one of the ones you put in there, I think, Rosie Affair. And then some of these others are just making up the numbers. Although Cover Up is interesting because he's a real 5 furlong horse. He won the Maidan Sprint, a Group 2, in February, I believe, or January. It was at the start of the year. But he's a real 5 furlong horse, and there hasn't been that many options over 5 for him in the last few months. So they've taken their time with him a little bit. They've tried him over 6. Now he's back at 5, which is his really good distance, and gets James McDonald on him as well. So he's a really interesting roughie. But yeah, just the fact that he's going from 6 furlongs back to 5 furlongs is the main reason why I'm against him a bit. But yeah, and saying that 5 furlongs is his distance. It's just the change. I just don't like as a punter very much. You got the likes of Starlust, who he won a Breeders' Cup juvenile. No, it was a Breeders' Cup turf sprint, I believe, as a 3-year-old, and then he went off to the stallion barn, and I think he was infertile or had fertility issues. So now he's back here, back in England, racing in these races. It'll be a massive ask if he wins, I reckon, or for him to win, I should say. And then some of these others are just making up the numbers as you see in these races at Ascot. Obviously, it's a big meeting, and owners don't know when they'll have another chance to have a runner at Ascot. So it's worth taking a chance in most cases. But yeah, for this race, obviously you can recognise my accent. I'm Australian. You probably think I'm going on Asphora or Overpass, but I'm not. I think Night Raider's going to win. I think Overpass is going to get rolled. And I think Night Raider is a really good improving sprinter. He's won at Group 2 level last start, and I think this is his time. I think Watnan Racing, they're such a powerful entity in the sport now, and they really come alive at Ascot. And I think Night Raider is going to, help them get to, their projected winners across the festival, I think. So yeah, I've got Night Raider for the King Charles Stakes. Overpass might be too good, but going purely off form and, what horses at what stage of their career, I like Night Raider, and I think he's a really good chance here. I think I got on at 7-1. So yeah, that was a long time. A lot of horses in that King Charles Stakes. But we'll move on to one of the most interesting duels of the entire Royal Ascot meeting. A mile, St James's Palace Stakes, 3-year-olds. Massive, massive race. You've got, it was meant to be the 3 Guineas winners, Beau Echo, Gustard, Reef, although Reif, I think he had a temperature, so they didn't bring him here. You've got Beau Echo, undefeated, George Bowie, Billy Loughnane. He comes here off one of the greatest 2,000 Guineas victories we've seen in this century, arguably, since Frankel, maybe. Okay, that's a bit of a stretch, but you know what I mean. Like, that was a ridiculous, ridiculous win. And I'm just going to cut to the chase here. I'm going to try and get on him, although I want to get evens. That's the lowest price I want to get on. I want evens. I think he's $1.80 at the moment, which is just too short. But I think he's an absolute jet. And the way Oisin Murphy spoke about him in that preview that I alluded to before, just filled me with confidence about this horse. Like, he's an aeroplane. Beau Echo is an absolute aeroplane. I think he's going to be too good here. Gustard, he's done nothing wrong in his career, really. It took a while to get that first Group 1 for him, but, he's really bulletproof, this horse. He's going to give Beau Echo a run for his money. Both of them have fitness this time on their sides. And his last seen winning the Irish 2000 Guineas, like a very good horse. So, it's going to be so interesting because there's no excuses here. Like, these are the best horses. They've had runs under their belt. It's just going to be a really epic duel, but I think Beau Echo is going to get the better of him. Talk of New York comes here. Now, he was meant to be the Guineas horse for Charlie Appleby and Godolphin. However, he had that run at Maidan, which was meant to set him up for it, and it didn't really go to plan. So, he's had a bit of a different sort of campaign, but he was last seen winning I think it was the Heron Stakes at Sandown at listed level over a mile. So, he comes here now. He might be really good. It's the same sort of vibes as Opera Ballet. Like, he's come to this new level, and we don't really know how good he is, but he's not better than Beau Echo. He's not beating Beau Echo. I'm sorry. He's just not winning this race, talk of New York. And then Puerto Rico, who's a pretty good 2-year-old. Didn't really fire in the French 2000 Guineas last start, albeit it was on a really heavy track. And it was just like raining and really miserable and stuff. So, he might improve here, but I think he's really here to set the pace for Gustard. That's the impression that I get from Puerto Rico. Power Blue is a Group 1 winner, but, hasn't really trained on probably. And I'm not really sure what the last horse is doing in this race, to be honest. So, Beau Echo wins the St James's Palace, I think. I think it's going to be similar to how Field of Gold won it last year. I was actually there at the track for day 1 of Ascot last year, and it was, really good. Sun was out. And Field of Gold winning that was one of the best performances I've seen while I've been at a racetrack. So, this race can throw up some really incredible performances, and I think Beau Echo is going to be another one of those come Tuesday night or tonight even. So, we'll move on. There's a few handicaps, but I'm not really that compelled to talk about them. But we'll talk about the Wolferton Stakes, a 2,000 metre listed contest. I believe it's second last race. We'll just quickly talk about it because there's a few interesting horses. The favourite's Naran, who was last seen last year even. A bit of a late developing horse, but he comes here. He's pretty useful, but as I said, he hasn't been seen for a long time, so you're running a bit of a risk there. Hartem, who was a really, really gun 3-year-old, but kind of lost his way a little bit. He won the race last year, but I think he's very high up in this market, to be honest. Then you've got Ghost Rider, who was bought by Ammo Racing for a massive amount of money, and there's no way they've made that a return on that investment. He runs here in a Wolferton Stakes. I bet when they bought him, they thought he's going to run in a Prince of Wales Stakes, a Breeders' Cup Turf, those sorts of races. But he's here in a Wolferton. As a 5-year-old, he's a bit past a Ghost Rider, I think. Gallon's a bit of a globetrotter. He's a good horse. He ran well in this race last year. He was last seen running really poorly in the Neom Turf Cup in Riyadh. He sweated up before the off, and just nothing went right for him. But he comes here, massive drop in grade. He can run a big race. But it's just sort of these middle distance horses that aren't good enough for a Prince of Wales Stakes. But I'm having a bet on Survie. I think Survie's a really good mare. Obviously, she's 5 years old, so and that's the thing with some of these mares, they kind of get really good as a 5-year-old and 6-year-old. I've noticed. So Survie's a really, really classy horse. I think she's a Group 1 horse running in a listed race. Obviously gets Ryan Moore booked. You can easily forgive her last start because she missed the jump and was just chasing the whole way. And Safi Osborne went out on Falakea as if it was a 5 furlong race. So she was never comfortable, never stood a chance of winning that race, Survie. But prior to that, she came third in the Neom Turf Cup. Like, she's a Group 1 horse. She Group 1 place last year. I think this is a really massive drop in grade for this horse. I think she's how is she 20-1? That's just madness to me. She should be 5-1 or 6-1, I think. That might be a stretch. Maybe 9-1 or 10-1. But yeah, Survey's going to be my bet in the Wolferton. She's a really interesting horse. As I said, Group 1 horse running in a listed race. But yeah, that's about it for day 1 of Ascot. I'll obviously drop day 2 tomorrow, probably. But yeah, it should be a really exciting week of racing. My naps for the meeting are Scandinavia and Jolie Star. I think Scandinavia is the second coming of Kyprios, and I think Jolie Star is, she's the best sprinter in Australia, and she's going to prove it on Saturday against a very, substandard group of horses. Other than Satona Revs. Satona Revs, he's pretty good, but Jolie Star has just so much on him in terms of ability. So yeah, it should be a good week of racing. And remember, punting wise, it's a marathon, not a sprint, I think. So yeah, if you like this sort of content, like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you later.